What if I told you that one of the oldest Christian documents we have isn't some dense rulebook, but a deeply personal, encouraging letter? Today, we're diving into First Thessalonians. It's a short, powerful message about what it means to hang on to hope in the middle of a storm. And even though it was written nearly 2,000 years ago, you'll see it feels like it could have been written for us today.
But before we jump into the history, let's just pause and ask ourselves this. When life gets genuinely tough, what anchors you? Really, what keeps you steady when everything feels uncertain? It's a question we all have to face, and it's the exact question sitting at the very heart of this ancient letter.
All right, so to really understand this letter, we have to get a picture of who it was for. I want you to imagine a brand new, kind of fragile community trying to find its footing in the ancient city of Thessalonica. This was a busy, chaotic port city, a real crossroads of the Roman Empire, and things happened incredibly fast here. Around the year 50, the Apostle Paul rolls into town and starts sharing his message. A small community pops up, made up of locals who decided to turn away from their old idols. But get this, after only a few weeks, the pushback gets so intense that Paul literally has to flee for his life. About a year later, from a totally different city, he writes this letter back to them. And this little group, man, they were immediately hit with some fierce headwinds. They were being persecuted by their own neighbors and local leaders. They were a tiny minority, and they were under constant pressure to just give up and go back to worshiping the Roman gods. And on top of all that, they were confused about their new faith and absolutely heartbroken over friends in their community who had recently died. So Paul hears about all their struggles, and he does what any good pastor would do. He picks up a pen. This letter isn't some abstract theological essay. It's a personal, really heartfelt message from a friend and a mentor. It was designed specifically to encourage them and just reassure them that they were going to be okay. And what's so cool is that this shows us a side of Paul we don't always see. We might think of the fiery apostle, the guy who wrote that passionate corrective letter to the Galatians, but here, his tone is completely different. He sounds like a parent, tender, proud, and just deeply concerned for his spiritual kids back in Thessalonica. And here's something that is actually kind of mind-blowing. Many scholars believe this is the oldest of Paul's letters that survived. That means we are looking at one of the earliest Christian documents in existence, a direct window into the very, very beginning of the faith. So Paul, along with his buddies Silas and Timothy, had three really clear goals for this letter. Number one, encourage these believers who are really suffering. Number two, clear up their confusion about the future, especially about Jesus' return. And number three, urge them to live holy lives while they waited. Simple as that. Now, if you had to boil this entire letter down to just one single concept, it would be this: hope. It is the golden thread that ties every single section together, from the very first words of thanks to the final instructions. But we have to be really clear. When Paul talks about hope, he doesn't mean wishful thinking, like, I hope it doesn't rain tomorrow. For him, biblical hope is a confident, firm expectation. It's a certainty that's anchored in the promises of God, specifically the promise that Jesus is coming back to make everything new. At the end of the day, 1 Thessalonians is basically a masterclass in hope. It's this powerful reminder that this faith isn't just about the past or even the present. It is fundamentally pointed toward a secure and glorious future. Okay, so with that foundation of hope firmly in place, Paul then gets super practical. He starts directly addressing the community's most pressing fears and questions. He builds his letter around a few key pillars. He kicks things off by celebrating what they're doing right: their faith, their love, and their hope. Then he gets practical, giving them instructions on how to live in a way that honors God, talking about things like sexual purity and loving each other well. And finally, he tackles their biggest anxiety: the return of Jesus. And this verse right here, this is what must have brought them so much comfort. See, the Thessalonians were worried sick about what happened to believers in their community who had already died. Were they missing out? And Paul's answer is a resounding no way. He assures them that when Jesus returns, those who have died in faith will be the first to rise and meet him. Now, as you can probably guess, this passage has sparked centuries of debate, especially around the idea of the rapture. That's the belief that Christians will be physically taken up to meet Christ. The source material points out this scholarly discussion. Some interpret Paul's words here as a literal physical event, while others see it as powerful, symbolic language for being united with Christ at the end of time. So why should a 2,000-year-old letter written to a small, persecuted church in ancient Greece matter to us today?
Well, because the human need for real, tangible hope is absolutely timeless.
What's so amazing is how this letter's message just leaps across the centuries. It tells us that no matter what we're facing, pressure, grief, uncertainty, our ultimate future is secure. And that security isn't some excuse to just sit back and do nothing. It's the fuel that actually empowers us to live with purpose and holiness and joy right here and now.
And that really leaves us with a final challenge. The message of First Thessalonians isn't just something to know about, it's something to live. So the question it poses to us is this: are our daily lives, our jobs, our relationships, our priorities, are they shaped by the confident hope of what's to come? Are we living in light of eternity?